What's up, Lego builders? Welcome back to Coconut Brick Studios for another week of building Mygeeto and Lego. This week is going to be a week of finishing things. This week I want to finish the middle plateau and light up the final building on it. I also bought a very critical part for the Magna Droid, which should set me up to get that all done as well. Lastly, and this is a big one, I hope to get all of the rock work done. That means by the end of this episode, there should be a giant complete mountain sitting on my tables. So if you're excited to see a giant Droid and the third largest mountain I've ever built, don't forget to execute order 66 on that like button, and let's get to it. I'm starting the week big and finishing the rest of the middle plateau. Now that the road is laid out, I can put in the rock wall on the other side that'll hold up the last third of the city. I'm so ready to be done with the rock work, although at least there's something at the top of this mountain, unlike any of the other big ones I've done so far. I'm going to leave a little gap between the road and rock so I can add in the retaining wall, and hopefully after this update there'll be no more rock work time lapses. I love rock work probably more than the next guy, but even I have my limits and I'm sure you're tired of seeing them too. I bought a bunch of 1x2x5 gray bricks, and I'm so happy I figured out a way to use brick for the road, and it looks like I might have just enough to finish everything I need. Because I'm using snot brick, the back side of the road looks kind of weird because the underside of the bricks are exposed, so I had the idea to put some pegs in the bricks and stack some plate and tile together to create a little beam. I was going to connect this to the pegs and have a solid back to the road, but there was this big gap in between the brick and the plate caused by the pegs, which was visible from above, so I decided to just scrap that idea and leave the back side of the bricks exposed. Now I can add in the retaining walls. I recreated the side walls of the bridge, but in big chunks. I have panels of 2x2 slopes on the front side of the wall that touch the slopes on the top to make the whole thing look more rounded. I really like how they look, but I do get Camino vibes from them. Camino mock next, anyone? One thing I don't like is the transition from bridge to road. Because the road is taller, it creates this ugly jump up in the wall, so I pulled off the tile and slope and tried to blend the two sides together as best I could. Because the walls are curved on both the front and top, it was hard to get a seamless transition, but I did the best I could with slopes and cheese slopes. I also had the idea to stick a plate on top of the slope so I could place a statue on the wall. I don't know, it just felt like something you'd see on Mygeeto, and speaking of statues, I wish we had more stuff like this in the US incorporated into daily life. I just need one more house for the middle of the city, and I'm very motivated to build this one because I want to see what it will look like having multiple lit up houses next to each other. I do have two more on the first plateau, but they haven't been modded yet to be able to hold lights. Also, these take a deceptively long time to build. I'm always thinking it's just a simple base with some dishes, but each dish takes so long to build because of the ring of snot brick under each one. I also never thought this day would come, but I used up probably 90% of the trans light blue cylinders in my collection. I haven't used that many since I originally bought them back in 2020 for the Battle of Naboo. The last big thing to do is tile off any leftover exposed plate. I obviously save this for last once everything is laid out and the big things are in, so I don't put tile in the wrong spot. I did a lot of tiling last week, so this section by the house I just built is the only place left. I just need to continue the road leading back into the city and add some snow detailing behind the house. I must say this little section turned out particularly good. Maybe I'll throw a grill in back there so the owner can cook up some Krabby Patties. Alright, playtime's over. It's time to get serious about the Droid. I have the legs all done, I just need to design the body, if you could call it that, and head. I had a couple of options for the head. Brick built or use one of the Lego planets. I was leaning towards the planet but wanted to test out how it would look before buying one. My friend Michigan Bricks gave me one back in the days of Utapau, but I hadn't seen it in what felt like years. After hours of searching, I uncovered the orb in a box full of stuff from Kato Nemoidia, and honestly it felt like Christmas morning opening up that box and seeing that thing staring up at me. While not the right color, it will at least let me see if the scale would work. Sure enough, it did. It might be a tiny bit on the small side, but I don't think it looks that weird, and the added plus of a completely smooth head makes this the obvious choice. Now I can figure out how to build the body with its guns and attach everything to the legs. The body looks like a series of dishes of varying sizes, so I just picked some random dish looking pieces and gears and stacked them on top of each other. The gears added a nice mechanical look and made the body look a little bit more technical and detailed. Then I stuck the bottom of the head through the end of the peg and secured it in place. I found a cool round plate with a gear sticker on it that matches one of the shapes on the planet, so I stuck it on top to cover up the studs and add some more detailing. This droid still needs to be able to do some damage, so here are some cannons. The two main features I wanted to capture were the barrel and muzzle thing on the end, and the classic red eyes above the barrel. I copied the dwarf spider droid face built by Lego by using the old Lego phone piece and some round studs. The housing of the gun looks pretty nondescript, so I just built something that looked cool and and added some greebling. There are cables connecting the guns to the head, but there isn't really any way for me to do that or any space, so I didn't bother with those. This is it. Buckle up your seatbelts for the final bit of rockwork building. Really drink this in, because if I decide to carry out my plans for the next big mock, it could be years until you see another large-scale mountain build from me. The only thing that's still challenging is getting the snow patches to look natural. I don't want them to be square blobs on the mountain, but dynamic shapes that flow across the rockwork. I'm also trying to get a gradual transition from snow patch to rockwork so that there isn't a solid endpoint, but more of a tapered transition, similar to what you see on actual mountaintops, since snow doesn't usually melt or accumulate in straight lines. I still have that large order of dark bluish gray brick from last week, so I was able to build up the sidewall almost to the top. If I hadn't sold so much of mine last summer, I probably would have had enough to finish, but I'm not that mad. Dark bluish gray brick is always good investment, so buying more isn't the end of the world. It's time for an overview of what I've been cooking up. At last, the middle section of the city is mostly done. It's nice to have this one out of the way because it's basically a filler plateau, since the road takes up most of the space, so there wasn't much fun building or detail work to be done. But at least I was able to squeeze in a couple of buildings. I also have a lot more space for the droid command post and vehicles, which I wasn't planning on, so I may have to bust out the CIS AATs as backup to the forces on the bridge. I can't tell you how happy I am with these new buildings. They make the city look so much more impressive, and the lights illuminate them perfectly. I added a second puck light to the upper dishes, which means I'll need to buy another pack of lights since each building now needs 2, but it's well worth the price to be able to distribute the light more evenly and brightly. Now only a few things remain. First, I need to finish the retaining wall on this side of the road since I once again ran out of the small 2x2 slopes, but the important thing is it's all laid out. I also want your feedback on the entrance to the city. Do you prefer option A, having the statue on the wall where the road and bridge meet, or option B, no statue? Let me know in the comments what you prefer. The second thing I need to do is continue this small retaining wall up onto the middle plateau. I forgot to add it in while I was putting the tile down, and I know there wouldn't be much foot traffic up here, but I still think it would be nice to have this stone wall run the entirety of the front of the city for continuity's sake, and I just think it's going to look cooler. The third thing is just add more snow detailing, but honestly at this point that's just something I gotta do for the entire mock. I'm sure this is what you've all been waiting for. A look at my newly finished Magna Droid mock. This turned out much better than I expected. I never designed a droid vehicle before, and their designs can often be very strange, spindly creations, which can be hard to recreate in LEGO, especially the walkers with their long spider-like legs. In my opinion, the Magna Droid is not a very practical design, having a giant head just sitting up on 3 legs, but this build actually holds up really well. I thought I was going to need some kind of rod to hold it up, but the legs are strong enough to hold everything up, which makes me even more pleased with what I was able to come up with. Functionality and aesthetic is a hard balance to achieve, as I've come to learn. The important thing is you think Magna Droid when you look at this. Being able to see this all complete really hammers home the fact that the planet head was definitely the way to go. I don't know about minifig scale, but this thing is still going to be a fearsome sight on the battlefield going up against my UT-AT. I can't believe I get to say this, but I'm finally done with all the rock work. Only took me 7 months and countless rockwork live streams. I'm sure I'll adjust things here and there as the last plateau is being built, but the structure is in and I'm so pumped. That's the thing about rockwork. It can be dull and monotonous work at times that seemingly goes on forever, but when you finally get to step back and look at what you've done, it's breathtaking. All the slopes and curves come together to form one massive seamless build. This was my first time really adding a serious highlight color into the rockwork as well, which, as I said, was a real challenge trying to get the white to blend into the gray of the rock as smoothly as possible, but I'm pretty happy with how it looks. I could have used more snow patches on this side, but this is where I started building at the beginning of the series, so it would make sense that it would get better as I moved across the rock face and gained more experience. As the mock has neared completion, my thoughts have turned more and more to the battle that'll take place on the bridge. I don't just want it to be a series of minifigs set up across from each other, I want to really capture the Battle of Mygeeto in the build, and the minifigs with their accessories are what take a mock from a mere sculpture to a moment frozen in time. I've been working on a number of things to make the minifig portion of the mock feel more realistic and immersive, like building E-web cannons placed in the wreckage of vehicles, decaling highly detailed marines and equipping them with various weapons, as well as adding lights into the bridges and city. Recently, I also made a purchase that will not only change this mock, but pretty much any Clone Wars era mock I make moving forward. Clone Army Customs released the first battle droid to have independently moving legs as well as arms that rotate. To complete the package, it comes with a backpack just like what we see in the movie. movies. These combined with the extra detailing of the body make these figs a game changer in mock building. I've already started using them in mocks, and suddenly I can bring the droids to life in a way that I never could before and depict more emotion and action in the Separatist ranks. I only have around 12 right now, but I'd like to get some more before the series ends. Having droids actually looking like they're moving around the city and marching onto the bridge is going to elevate this mock even more. One thing I've been wanting to do for a while is add lit up explosions to the build. I've never had a network of wires extensive enough to reach the actual battles, but while wiring the lights on the bridge, I set up a framework that can light up an explosion virtually anywhere I want on the bridge. All it took was a couple of bit lights and some trans orange and red pieces, and I have a glowing fireball. Once I start blocking out where the minifigs go, I can figure out where exactly I want this explosion to be. This was a short but productive episode. I'm currently in the process of finishing building my house, which has taken up basically all my time, but I still managed to get a lot done on Mygeeto. I'm especially happy to have that tri-droid all done and looking as good as it does. After how difficult the UT-AT was, I was surprised with how easy this building process was. I didn't run into any major obstacles, and everything I came out with worked out basically on the first try.
A surprise, to be sure, but a welcome one.
Next week, I want to have the final city plateau all laid out where the buildings are going to go, and I have a new building design you guys might not remember that I need to fix up and place on the build. But that wraps up this week. Don't forget to let me know what you thought about everything down below in the comments, and I'll catch you next time. But until then, happy building.